What is literature? At first, it might seem simple to say literature is imaginative writing, fiction rather than fact. But this does not work. Many works we consider literature are not purely fictional. Shakespeare's plays and Milton's poems are clearly literature, but so are essays by Bacon and sermons by Donne, which are not fictional. Even news articles in earlier centuries were not clearly factual or fictional. On the other hand, some fictional works like comic books or romance novels are not usually considered literature. So, being fictional or imaginative does not automatically make something literature. Some critics, like the Russian formalist, said literature is different because of how it uses language. According to them, literature makes language strange, different from normal speech. It makes us see the world in new ways. This is called defamiliarization. For example, the line, "Thou still unravished bride of quietness," clearly stands out from normal conversation. The formalist said literature uses devices like rhyme, rhythm, and unusual syntax to draw attention to itself. It refreshes our way of seeing and makes language more vivid. They also argued that literary works are not just about content but about form, how language is structured. For instance, they said Don Quixote is not just about a character but a way to organize different writing styles. Animal Farm, they argued, was not about Stalinism but rather used Stalinism as a background for its structure. For them, literature was not about reflecting reality or the author's emotions, it was about how language was used. But there are problems with this idea. To say something is strange or unusual, we have to know what normal language is. And that changes depending on who is speaking and where they are from. What sounds poetic in one region might be ordinary elsewhere. Also, many people use literary devices in everyday speech like metaphor or irony. So, it is not always easy to draw a clear line between literary and non literary language. Eagleton gives the example of a sign on the London Underground: "Dogs must be carried on the escalator." Though it is a practical instruction, someone could read like poetry or see deep meaning in it. A drunk person might read it and mutter, "How true," as if it were a wise saying. This shows that what we think of as literature often depends on how we read it, not what it is. Reading something as literature means treating it as symbolic or meaningful beyond its immediate use. Some think literature is simply any kind of writing that does not have a clear practical purpose. But this is also tricky. We might read a poem for facts or a science text for pleasure. A poem might be valued for its truth, not just its beauty. So, calling literature non pragmatic does not solve the issue. Eagleton argues that the definition of literature depends on value judgments. Some works become literature because people decide they are valuable. This means literature is not a fixed category like insects or rocks. What counts as literature can change over time and across cultures. A philosophical essay today might be seen as literature tomorrow, and vice versa. Some texts are born as literature, some become literature later, and some have literature forced upon them. Because of this, literature is not a stable or universal category. It depends on how people treat certain texts. If people treat a railway timetable like a poem, then in a way it becomes literature. The word literature works like the word weed. A weed is not a specific kind of plant, just a plant we don't want in our garden. Literature is just any kind of writing that people value in a certain way. The value we assign to literature is tied to ideology, systems of belief that are linked to power in society. Eagleton gives the example of I.A. Richards' experiment where students read poems without knowing who wrote them. Their responses varied, but their ideas about what poetry should be were quite similar because of their shared background. This shows that our reactions to literature are shaped by our social position, beliefs, and culture. Judgments about literature are never purely objective, they reflect deeper social values and power structures. Literature does not have a fixed definition or set of qualities. It is shaped by historical, cultural, and ideological factors. What counts as literature depends not only on the text but on the people who read and value it. Literature is not a fixed thing, it is a process, a way people relate to texts in particular ways depending on their time, place, and beliefs.